Falls was not discovered by Romania. That was a place that a lot of natives came and met. In fact, there was a song about, there used to be a song about Great Falls being the little sister and the Niagara Falls being the big brother. Now, I was asked to come here and talk about our Ojibwe history and where we come from. Well, Rocky Boy came down into Great Falls, and there was Rocky Boy there now, and there was Jim Gopher, his dad, came down there now. We were all kind of meeting up, and even some of Little Shell's full-bloods like Gandhi Bacon. They had family, not too. But anyway, so you had 3 different types of Crees in Great Falls. On the Cree side of me, my grandpa's name is Charles Walker. His dad's name is Walking Child. And his dad's name is Chief Little Coffee. So I'll explain the Cree side of that particular Cree. There was feuding going on in Canada. And Little Poplar did not want to have this tribe wiped out. So he, in 1870, 1869, around that area, he sent his youngest Cree south. The older ones that stayed with them ended up in Muscatine. See, that's cheap. They caught Little Poplar in Montana. You know Grandpa Charlie Walking Child? His grandpa was beheaded. And his head sits in the Smithsonian right now. Jim Gopher, Rocky Boy, Little Shell, they're all part of Ion Oasis offspring. Even some of them hold some Red Lake and White Earth, and some of the ones in Winnipeg. That's the truth. That's not preaching to you. But ain't that a rich history? Mm-hmm. That we all descend from that flag that's in a maple that's older than this country itself. That historian said that flag's probably one of the only 7 that was ever produced, and probably the only one that's still in good fabric. He descends from it. We all do on the Ojibwe side. You know, my grandparents used to tell me a lot of stories. My grandma once said, I heard her say this. And I asked my uncle, what did she say? She was upset that day. And she said, we helped these Mooney out build this country. Now imagine that. You are part of that. You descend from that. I think even Turning Point, we classified him as a para in Indian, but he was our relative. Turning Point. Memiju. I can't say the full word of that. But if you look on that, what you call, you can look this up, the Road Cloud Report, Road Cloud Roll, you'll see all these half-breeds that are descendants of Jean-Claude Baptiste, who was Napoleon's nephew, who brought a fleet over from France to help win the revolution. True story. It's right there. the low cloud report that says this is preparing the offspring of Jean-Claude Baptiste. And the full-bloods at the bottom, that's our ancestors. Chief blood. See, when God, I'll tell a quick story of creation. How many of you know where the pipe comes from? Pipestone. I'll tell you that pipestone. This is important. That pipestone comes from God's right hand when He created the world. And this world that He created was filled with water. And He made that what they call one road theory, meaning that this land was one base. There was two spirits. Ritzaketzak, Kachnatzketzak. One of them was going to be the keeper of us. One of them. So Ritzaketzak, yes, did help God create the world. We all know that. And God took his spiritual mind and turned it into a human being. That's why you get all these fascinating stories about him being right across it this way. That mountain ain't even a mountain, it's a hill. And my grandpa and grandma always stressed the importance of praying before the sun comes up, or praying in the morning, but not forgetting the Tzaketza. Any of you know what that means? How about you young ones? Because what you're doing here is you had a strong desire not only to know your Ojibwe side, but to start a healing process. I'm not here to preach to you, but I'll share what I have with you. Because if I preach to you, my fast, I have to say, you know what that means? If I try to preach to you and I do wrong, I don't want my kids to suffer. Does that make sense? It's powerful. I can tell you stories. You might like it. The favorite story I have from my kid is when Tzaketsak heard a chicken in a bush. He ran to that bush. By that time, he lost his spiritual mind and relationship with God. The fourth time he caught that chicken, he didn't tell me the story because there's snow on the ground out there. The fourth time he come up on that chicken and he caught it, that little chicken was laughing on his back. His feet moving. The Tzaketsak asked him, what are you doing? And that chicken was, have you forgotten? You helped the Creator create everything in this place. Have you forgotten? And the Tzaketsak said, show me what you're doing. So he took his eyeballs out, threw him in the air, stood still. Boom! He found this thing and he started laughing. Actually laughed. So we took it up right there. He stood still. Boom! He found him laugh. He laughed. Well, this story goes on a long time. All these stories. I'm just cutting it down. When they parted ways, he said, now remember, don't move when you do that. You know how we are as human beings, we kind of don't listen, so we move, and he threw his eyeballs in the air and man underground, he was waiting for him, moving around. Long time passed. There was a conversation that goes in between that time. But ultimately, he got down on the ground, looked for his eyeballs, in his socket, and he cried. So there's a moral in that story. And these are the stories that we grew up on at Hill 57. There was two different stories. There was what my grandma knew as an Ojibwe, and there was what my grandpa knew as a Cree, and it was interpreted by Larry. So whenever there was a conflict between my grandpa and grandma's story, my grandma took precedence in clarifying her story, getting that story clarified. Does that make sense? So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you, because this is a good thing that you guys are doing, and it starts with the meal. I asked for something. What did I ask for? Anybody know what I asked for? I asked that there be spoon soup. So there's something powerful behind that. So I won't share that story with you, because there's no spoon soup. So what was the best story? But anyway, back in Great Falls. So then I'll tell you another story real quick. As when Little Poplar sent his